So here we're entering the summer of 1946, and let's take a look at what the card picks were. Balloon bombs for the Japanese. This gives them some defensive strength. Just some home guard type units available in their force pool. Bushido table, I don't remember what that did for them. And then they get some steps that they got to take off the home guard. And they're going to be getting that regularly here. The Allies used the Cricket Conference, added some more force pool and some armor. Ooh, and I forgot to give them the colonial step, which they're going to take at the end during their conditional victory point, which I'll put down in Perth. The easiest place to get it out of. I don't know. It's really tough to get things from Australia, and there's nowhere else. Well, New Zealand is the next one. They have no Indian forces that they can grab because they don't own India. And then the Russians set up an offensive, the Hammer Offensive. They only get one per year. Give them some additional tank forces. Let's see what that all worked out as. Well, the Japanese ended up succeeding in finally taking this unpronounceable country, at least unpronounceable to me, this city up here, and that frees up their forces to come down, but the Western forces, alas, spreading out through China, eastern China, marching up, freed Siam, freed Burma, and contesting in both directions towards India as well as into Indochina. Landing here, which I suspect is illegal, because I see the convoy doesn't list it there, but I'm not really sure I understand why you wouldn't be able to play a convoy there, no matter what. I don't know. I'd have to understand that reasoning better to bother looking up the rule. A lot of naval combat here. U.S. fleet heavily committed to that invasion of Japan. The invasion itself isn't very far along, but the Japanese are going to have to try to blanket it in and force the U.S. to fight their way ashore, as it were. That's going to actually be possible because the victory point marker is up here. So the Japanese are going to be getting a couple more steps. They drop them here and here, and they make it a little uglier for the U.S. to push forward. However, got the communist Chinese, a little rump of the nationalists showing up, the Russians streaming in, and really not stoppable. And I cannot see how the Japanese can hold out very long. I think the fact that the war in Europe ended so quickly, it really started and then died, is, why, even though Japan was able to put themselves in this powerful position, they're not holding out. Plus, I'm probably cheating in terms of making the attacks easier somehow. All right, on to the next month. And bad weather in the June-July turn. Allied forces moving into position in Indochina to make an attack on Saigon or above, where the headquarters is, maybe force that headquarters out of the way. Shipping some stuff through Rangoon up into Mandalay, positioning for the Indian invasion, and continuing to spread out. Hong Kong fell, getting ready for Nanking, and moving through Japan itself. Those hexes with airplanes on them are still held by the Japanese. And the Russians just plowing through. They took some heavy losses. Had to use up paratroopers here. Moved down into Xinjiang, positioning themselves more and more, just driving the Japanese back. Japanese points we're still at the 9 to 11 range, but I think we're going to start seeing them falling down very soon because they're not gaining anything and they're losing hex after hex. It's okay that there's no detachment there. That's actually Russian homeland. I don't know why I have a detachment up in this one, except why not? All right, well, move onward. So after the July-August turn, a little bit of a, let's see what happened. The Japanese pulling back, trying to defend in Japan itself, as well as trying to form kind of some sort of perimeter that maybe will be harder to crack. Especially for the Russians, it's getting difficult. But the weather's bad right now, so it's kind of tough for anyone. You do see the Allies, though, with their powerful force here. We've got this big mechanized army. Was able to smash through Nanking, and it's probably going to, really take out the Japanese position over here in Manchuria if they're not careful. Meanwhile, Szechuan is coming under attack with the communists moving down, and as well some of the Marines have moved inland. Probably not the best place for them. Down here, though, in Indochina, the Japanese held off and actually destroyed a unit, and they're not really losing any ground over in the India front. So, kind of a mixed bag there. So here in August, September, we're moving into the winter, or into the autumn. Japan doesn't have a lot they can do. Like I'm saying, they're kind of balling up and trying to defend themselves as much as possible. See is, well, let's take a look at the card choices. They threw an offensive, but they really don't have a use for it. Maybe a little bit of counterattack. The Allies, however, have this Operation Iceberg, which gives them a couple of blitz markers they used, and they get an additional beachhead so they can make more invasions. Not really necessary at this point. Some more troops that is necessary. And the Russians throw another air force into the mix. Of course, there's a little over a year and a half left at most. What we're seeing with the Allies is that they've kind of pushed up against Tokyo itself. They've got most of the island of Japan, but still, down here, Kyushu is held by the Japanese, and that's going to be a pain to dig them out of. This is not easy to dig them out of. Once they get to, I don't know where. We're still in Japan up here, and I think this is still Japan. So even up here, it's going to be hard to fight your way through the Japanese. They're going to have replacements coming in, but once all of this is wiped out, it becomes trivial to fight them elsewhere, because there's no supply, and there's not going to be any resupplying. There's not going to be any support units coming into play. But it's a hard slog through Japan itself. Elsewhere, well, we're seeing Kiangsu is largely liberated at this point, and Allied forces did not move forward as much as they could, pushing into the Hope and into Manchuria, going to wipe that area out. The Japanese have put a pretty effective block against the Russians here, and the Russians actually didn't even attack because it's just too painful. Meanwhile, we see U.S. Marines coordinating with Yunnan's forces to kind of drive the pro-Chinese Szechuan forces out of the way. And down here, no attack again. Weather's not nice. Shifting more forces down. Got to get them into place. All right, and that's about it. Notice the Russian Far East forces never made it into the delay box. They just did this turn. They were supposed to come in back here as soon as Russia stopped being a policy-affected country, i.e. when they entered the war. And this is a convoy that's allied over there. Not, that may have had some effect, definitely the extra air power, etc. Anyway, c'est la vie. So we continue on. Before I move on, I wanted to note I threw the Allied bomber units out of. They should have done this during their turn, but out of the strategic box and into the delay box. They ended up coming back in this upcoming turn. The reason for that is I want to knock out these things that are hard to get to. Just devastate the hexes. In particular, possibly Nagasaki down here is not really worth invading with its difficulties. So if I can bomb that to smithereens and take it away from the Japanese, they won't get supplies from it. Tokyo, I'm pretty much set up to continue attacking Tokyo, so I may continue with that and use the bombing maybe for one of these islands when that becomes the last stronghold of Japan. All right, onward. So here we are at the end of autumn in 1946, and let's see what's happened so far. Nothing too exciting on the cards. Japanese have kind of been able to stymie the Americans. They got a supportive nationalists, which got rid of the logistical marker that was here, and definitely slowed things down here. They didn't completely stop them, and they didn't completely stop them up there in attrition war down here. They did get overrun down here in Indochina, and that means the Allied forces are moving towards India now. But Allies had to drop a devastation marker in Nagasaki, like I talked about, but they're not really gaining any traction here in mainland Japan, kind of swinging, trade one hex for another or whatever. And then up here on Sapporo, they're going to be facing again a big unit, a home guard probably going to defend that. So it's getting uglier and uglier as we go. Let me get a quick count of victory points, see if we've dropped below that 9 level. I think somehow I miscounted on the last time I counted the victory points back in the summer, because I must have counted some of these oranges in. I was above that 9, and that can't have been. Right now it's down to 0, actually, and that puts it on the Allied Crusade, and that means that it's going to be really, really tough. We're already getting close there. Got another 9 to go before we basically break even on this map. On the other map, what did we get for victory points? I think we've got a full 4 victory points, which means even if the game ended now, it would be an Allied victory across the maps. You still want to finish it out, see if the Allies can get it far enough that, maybe they hit automatic victory or whatever. Just see how far they can get that victory point marker. But I think they've already won the game. All right, I'm going to load this one up.